Hey there, self-care warriors. Welcome back to Self-Care Haven. Today we're going to be talking about some of the questions that sociopaths ask us in their interview process, where they're collecting information about your vulnerabilities, your strengths, your weaknesses, your deep dark secrets, your past wounds, your past traumas. And I'm going to be sharing some of the questions that I've been asked by manipulative, toxic individuals in the past, as well as sharing some of the techniques and the manipulation tactics that they use when first meeting you in order to gauge whether you'd be the perfect source of supply for them. So let's get started. Recently, I came across a very interesting Reddit thread in which the person asked therapists of Reddit what traits or qualities or incidents made you realize that the person you were dealing with in the professional arena was a sociopath. And there were some really interesting responses by therapists who found out through these incidents that the person they were treating was a sociopath. If you are interested in learning more about that, I will leave a link in the description box below. It is a very interesting thread and it speaks very well to the manipulation tactics that these sociopathic individuals use. Everything from trying to drive people to suicide, to using the pity ploy, to acts of violence, starting in childhood. And it's very enlightening. And I think it really does show how dangerous these individuals can be when they're not responsive to treatment. And one comment in particular caught my eye, and this was a person who claimed to be a sociopathic individual, and he said that he had almost driven 7 people to suicide just online alone. He talked about how he would online date, and online dating was a hunting ground for him to find new victims. And he also talked about how even though he was physically intimidating, he is able to charm the pants off of everyone who meets him. He's charming, he's friendly, and everyone around him drops their guard because of fake persona and fake personality, contrived false mask. Now, obviously, this is a very dangerous individual, but he did offer some insights as to how he operates. Now, of course, you can't always believe what a sociopathic individual tells you. They could be lying, but since this is online, this is anonymous, this person really doesn't have any repercussions for revealing his manipulation tactics, aside from the fact that victims can learn about it. So I do think that it's an interesting insight into a sociopath's mind, so I will share what he said. He said that there are 7 questions that he asks all individuals, and they're very basic questions. So some of the questions that he asks are things that are very innocuous, things that anyone can be asked on a first date or a first meeting, right? Things like, what are your hobbies? What is your favorite movie? What's your favorite color? What do you like to do in your spare time? These are very basic questions, but what he said was that he would allow the person to elaborate, right? He wouldn't try to ask them more follow-up questions, but he would allow them to elaborate so that they would reveal more about themselves than they were realizing. And this is what sociopathic individuals do, right? They step back and they try to figure out what you will reveal to them. And why do they do this? They do this because they know that they can assess your vulnerabilities, and they know that the information that you're offering can give them a clue as to what you're willing to put up with, what your strengths and weaknesses are, your capacity for empathy and compassion, and your ability to tolerate abusive behavior. They will put you through these boundary tests to assess that. And upon first meeting you, they will try to gauge whether this person is going to be a good victim or a good source of supply for them. So if you are highly empathic, if you are highly compassionate, they may ask questions that relate to how empathic or compassionate you may be. For example, in the past, I've been asked by a manipulative individual, are you spiritual? And this is a very interesting question for a sociopathic or toxic individual to ask, because what they're really asking when they ask that is, are you willing to put up with my bullshit? Are you willing to forgive, deny, minimize, rationalize my abusive behavior with the idea that we are all interconnected, that there's a larger meaning behind all of these experiences, that we have a soulmate connection, that you are my twin flame, things of that nature, right? This same person also asked me, do you believe that we're all connected? And in the past, I may have responded in a more generous fashion, right? And I may have expressed the fact that I am a very highly empathic and spiritual individual. However, because I know about sociopathic individuals, because I know about their manipulation tactics, I responded by saying, I believe that some people are less connected than others. And this person did not like that response. Why? Because it showed them that I was not willing to put up with abusive behavior in the name of spirituality, in the name of this interconnectedness, right? In the name of kumbaya, because they love to have individuals who want to hold hands with abusive people and sing kumbaya. They love people who forgive easily. They love people who are empathic. They love people who are overly compassionate and generous, even to the extent of disregarding their own basic values, their own basic needs and wants. So by revealing that without explicitly saying I've had people who trampled on my boundaries or things like that, or trying to kind of give this strong image of, oh, I would never put up with this, I said it in a more subtle way through my philosophy, which he was trying to assess, because some of these sociopathic individuals are so highly manipulative and conniving that they will ask you these innocuous questions that are meant to assess your core values and philosophies on life. If your core values and your philosophies line up with the idea that you will be forgiving, that you will be compassionate, that you will fall prey to their pity ploys and their sob stories and their crocodile tears, what does the sociopath have? They have a person who is willing to look the other way, willing to turn the other cheek, willing to be humane to the inhumane behavior of their tactics, of their manipulation, of their ploys. Now, we also have to remember that this is in the context of sociopaths, right? So you may have empathic individuals who ask you these questions because they just want to get to know you. But the first rule of thumb is not to disclose information that could be used against you, and to slow down any attempts to fast forward intimacy, whether it be on an emotional, psychological, financial, spiritual, or even physical, sexual level, right? Because these types are always looking to fast forward intimacy. That's why they're so willing to disclose their past relationship histories early on, and they try to paint their exes as unhinged, obsessed, or they may even, if they are very covert, they may even compliment their ex, but then they offer up information that paints them as this obsessive partner, right? Because when you have a very sophisticated manipulator, they're not going to follow the norm, right? They're not going to just completely call their ex crazy. What they might do is sit down and tell you that, you know, their ex was a great person, but at the same time, their ex is now obsessed with them. They can't get over the breakup. They're stalking them, things like that, right? It's very covert, the ways that covert manipulators use this tactic versus the more overt narcissists, who are a lot more obvious in their techniques. So the more covert the wolf in sheep's clothing is, the less likely you are able to assess whether this person is manipulative, because they can dress up their tactics in ways in which you can't catch on. And that's another thing to remember, is that even if you have an empathic individual who is asking you these questions, it's a good rule of thumb to not disclose any type of information that you would not want used as ammunition against you later on. You need time to assess whether this person is trustworthy, whether they have empathy, whether they really have the compassion that their false mask suggests. And I know it can be exhausting to think, well, so I'm going to go around thinking that everyone's a predator? No, but you're going to assume that everyone is neutral until you find evidence that suggests otherwise, right? So you're not going to place them into either category until you have enough information to do so. So do not reveal all of your past history. Do not reveal your past relationships. Do not reveal the fact that, you had a narcissistic partner in the past. Do not reveal that, you're overly generous or kind to a fault. Because if you reveal those tendencies, if you reveal those life philosophies early on, what the narcissistic individual will do, or the sociopathic individual will do, is that they will realize that they're dealing with someone who is willing to give, and does not have good boundaries. Now, even if you do have strong boundaries, I also want to mention this person can still see you as a good target. Why? Because they like to break down strong individuals. And that is what I've been saying all along, right? Just because you were chosen as a target does not mean that you were gullible, naive, or less strong or intelligent. In fact, you were probably more intelligent. I actually have an article that goes into this about why smart women and men fall prey to sociopaths and narcissists and psychopaths, because many of the more sophisticated sociopaths and psychopaths out there, they do target very strong, intelligent individuals. The one thing that leaves them vulnerable, of course, are those past traumas, are those vulnerabilities. In their eyes, it's a vulnerability, but in our lives, it's a strength, right? Our ability to love, our ability to be compassionate towards others, our ability to be generous and kind, our ability to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, our ability to have empathy, our ability to have integrity, our ability to be conscientious. These are all great strengths to have in a healthy relationship, but they will be used against you by a predator. So if a person sees that you're very strong, you have very strong boundaries, they may either back off, or if they enjoy a challenge, what they might do is they might pursue you even more, because they're going to try to provoke you and try to break you down and punish you for not being that perfect victim that they're looking for. But what does help is being able to put a stop to the interrogation early on, because that way they have less to use against you, they have less information about you, and they might see you as a less vulnerable victim, and they may back off and move on to easier sources of supply on the long run, because they know that they cannot fool you in the long term. So I hope you enjoyed these questions, tips, and tools. If you have questions that you would like to share that your sociopathic individual or partner asked you, please do leave a comment in the comment section below. I'm sure all survivors can benefit from your life experiences and wisdom. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Until next time, take care. Be sure to check out my #1 best-selling book, Becoming the Narcissist Nightmare: How to Devalue and Discard the Narcissist While Supplying Yourself, a #1 bestseller in personality disorders. Also, be sure to check out my book, Power: Surviving and Thriving After Narcissistic Abuse, a #1 bestseller in applied psychology.